We are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mastering the Drop, a real view of recovery. I have Jordan Wright back with me today, and it is just so amazing. We're hoping that you guys really are having that opportunity to get to know us, what we think, feel, believe, how we conduct ourselves. And this week, we're going to be talking about slowing down and easing the pressure. So that means we're going to be talking about things like anxiety, fear, uncertainty, and how walking into life on a whole new, brand new foundation can be scary. But when we define it effectively and in the design that we desire, we don't fail, right? Oh, wow. Anxiety, fear, and uncertainty. So crazy, right, Jordan?
I feel like that's my life story from 2018 to now. I could write a book on it, I feel.
Right, because life continues to unfold.
Yeah.
It just keeps showing up every day, and we have to greet it with grace and dignity and integrity. And sometimes that can be difficult.
A lot of the times, I would say it could be. Well, depending on how you approach it and the tools that you have, the resources under your belt. But yeah, 100%.
Okay, I love that you said that, because I was just with a client right before we hopped on here, and she's been with me for quite some time. And we all know I've been in this work for some time because, I had to test it out in my own life before bringing it to the world. I still have to. Life shows up. You and I were having the conversation. We'll keep it out of this, but right, life shows up. There are other people. There are other personalities. There are other people's agendas. There are other things that show up that often aren't in alignment.
Yeah.
With our own, or just even in our own perceptions, right? Like, and we have to have those skill sets, right? Somebody has to, right? Somebody has to have the skill sets or the wherewithal to say, oh, let's pause, let's think through this, let's analyze, let's do something, anything other than be knee-jerk reactive and fly off the handle, or have verbal vomit, or be rude, or all the things, and really think of what's going to be an effective response, what's going to be an effective action to take, what's going to serve myself and whatever else is involved. And it's can be so difficult. But when you condition it and it happens a little faster, right? Like, sure, at the beginning, it takes a little more work and a little bit more presence. But, the more you practice it, the easier it can get to be able to, breathe through, or even seek for collaboration, right? Outside collaboration.
Right. And I think that for me, collaboration has always been key, because when you're in it, when you're in the thick of it, it's so hard to have like an outsider's perspective. And for the longest time, I've told myself, like, no, like I'm a critical thinker. Like I think analytically, like I can get through this. I can work this out on my own. I can get inside my own head and think of like all the possible different scenarios that this can play out and pick the right path. But that's just the bias in me and conceitedness, I guess. I don't know, thinking that I can be in the thick of it and also see clearly, and that just it doesn't always work out that way. And so when you can collaborate with somebody else who maybe can give you a fresh perspective, or maybe has gone through something similar, or has the resources and education to see that through, it makes such a world of a difference, as opposed to you thinking and then overthinking, and then it becomes this whole like meta critical thinking thing, right? Because now you're thinking about the thinking. And it just adds to Yeah, it adds to the uncertainty, adds to the anxiety, it adds to the pressure and the feeling of overwhelmingness, and it doesn't get you to an answer any quicker. It kind of slows down the process, in my opinion. So yeah, I've had to take a step back and reach out to people that I feel like have my best interest, to people that are educated, to people that have experience in dealing with, emotions and traumas and situations like this, to help me really see it through. Because when I depend on myself and I just kind of overwork and overthink, then I end up in this huge rabbit hole. And then now I'm like trying to climb out of it. And a situation that maybe was just like a minimal thing, not a big deal, kind of threw me off my track, has now become this huge, ginormous issue in my head that I can't tackle on my own anymore. And I am carrying this weight, and I just feel like it's like piling on and piling on. And any little thing that's triggering me now, it just adds to it. And it's like this big, huge, like weight or like boulder that I'm carrying around with me. So
there's so much in that. Like I think we could probably just dissect that forever. But I think that first, there's two things that really were standing out for me. And one is, I'm a critical thinker, I'm logical, all of these things, right? And I think I can do this. But in those, right, often what's happening is there's that emotional piece, right? So there's an emotional reason why we're uncomfortable, or we're derailed, whatever the situation is, and we're like, okay, I'm gonna rationalize away. And so we're at this almost like this pinging back and forth between passive and aggressive, passive and aggressive, passive and aggressive. And it that's the way I like to cross associate. And so the hard part is getting to that intuitive space where the emotion and the logic and the rationale all come together to this wise thing. And until you know how to effectively look at the emotional part in it, we tend to act from the emotional stance with our logic. And so it gets presented with this, I know what I'm talking about, and I this and I that, or I can't believe you. And so it's very thought through, it's very logical, but it's heightened. And so it doesn't allow for, so then I digress to, you're thinking about the thinking about the thinking about. And so we have these mental reels and loops. I call them rehearsals, right? Like we sit and we're talking to ourselves about the fact that we're talking to ourselves.
Right.
About this situation. Then it's often what keeps people up at night, right? You lay down and it's la 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 la. And so we have all of these rehearsals of potential conversations that we may or may not be, end up in, or, all the scenarios, and it's all fictitious or hypothetical, that it makes it so virtually impossible to not have anxiety.
Right.
Because we are so uncertain, but we've given ourselves so many different options. And because we aren't taking it to like an intuitive space that says, this is what I know to be right in my gut, right in my heart. This is what's going to serve my integrity. This is what's going to match my morals and my ethical beliefs, or, whatever that is, right? But we don't know to do that until we know to do that. And until we've conditioned it as a part of the process, we stay in this perpetual state of future tripping, anxiety inducing uncertainty.
Right. Agreed. And I think that, like speaking just on emotions, I think that there's such a small percentage that we can recognize and feel in our conscious mind, but I think that there's so much more that is subconscious, and that can trigger you without you even realizing that you're being triggered. And so you're trying to deal with this situation that gives you anxiety, and there's like all of this subconscious emotion as to why you're feeling anxiety to this thing in the first place, and why this is triggering you, and why you're spiraling to the point that you're spiraling. And I'm trying intuitively to get to my conscious mind and try and figure it out. But there's so much like deeper beneath like the surface that I can't even tap into because I'm so consumed with all the thoughts going on in my conscious mind. And so it's hard, it's difficult to reach into that and tap into that by yourself without having the resources or the knowledge on how to do that, and to take a step back and figure out like what's the core foundation, like what's the main reason why this is triggering me as much as it's triggering me, and why I'm getting so much anxiety from this compared to something else that I would just brush off the shoulder, right? Yeah, and I think that just like, again, collaborating, researching, getting knowledge, and just like professional help, like speaking to somebody that has years of experience, helping other people unravel those emotions and thoughts, and conscious and subconscious, is like the best way. It just like, and then you get into that recovery mode, and it's amazing how like recovery works. You get into that recovery mode for like one thing, and all of a sudden, like for example, you may be helping me out with a specific issue, and I now have answers to like 5 different triggers, like 5 different things. That's all unraveling because it's all stemming from this place that I didn't even realize was there, or like this like emotional trauma that I couldn't even recognize within myself. I had to come to you to get that help. But it's like now I'm getting like all of these different releases, which is awesome. And just like it's like a domino effect. But
we learn how to ask ourselves, and you can add, edit, delete, shape shift, or identify however that it works for you. But we learn how to ask ourselves what past something, what other negative attachment am I attaching to this from some other place that isn't even associated, right? Like, if again, you talk about the triggers, I often refer to it as prompting, like what's prompting me. And it's
right.
like, oh, I'm attaching this thing that happened when I was 10 to this, or I'm attaching this conversation that happened, or this disagreement that happened 3 weeks ago. I see it all the time in my work with couples. They start throwing, well, you did this. And it's like, well, we move past that, like we're attaching old stuff to new things.
Right.
That instead of, just going, okay, this is a new experience, this is a new event, and it's all going forward, nothing from the past, unless it's something that I can say without any hesitation, that my evidence proves to me that this was effective before, and it works well for me before. And it's so sure I'm going to bring that into this situation because I know it works well. Right. That's effective. But if we're allowing for all of our past baggage, right, our past pains, our past whatever, to be attached to new things, like we're not even giving the new things the opportunity to be a good experience. We're not even giving it the opportunity to be anything better or different or new. But like you said, we do this on a subconscious level. So when we feel that starting to churn on the inside, if we're really in tune with ourselves and we're really doing our work, right? Like we know what our core non-physical feeling is in any moment, we can say, okay, I'm feeling this coming. What's happening right now?
Right.
Right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? And we can identify quicker when we're subconsciously attaching a past trauma, a past whatever, to something new and different.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that a lot of that also stems from how well you handled any of those past traumas, and if you even handled it at all and thoroughly recovered from them. Because if not, then you're really just teaching yourself how to get more easily triggered while also carrying all of this anxiety, guilt, shame, all these emotions that have come from what you've dealt with. And you're just letting your mind be even more easily triggered. So it's becoming a habit now that, I didn't deal with all of this past stuff. And anything that kind of hits me now, I'm just adding it to this baggage. So really identifying, and being able to relate back to that, but also knowing that whatever I dealt with, like, it's done. I've healed from it, and I'm not going to let it continue to disrupt my life in my present state or my future state. Yeah. So.
Rock star, man.
Huh?
I said, you're a rock star.
I'm trying.
I love it. Well, it's always so important, right? That we're able to, look at those things that cause us anxiety, because it's a type of thing. There's categories. It's, sure, anxiety feels very physical to most of us. I don't know, maybe not everybody. But to me, the anxiety was really physical. And so I would have to, slow down the physical response to, whatever was going on, and really take a look at, what am I so fearful of?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, because I struggled with, panic style anxiety for a really long time. I mean, we'd be driving down the road and just get so unnerved by one thing that I'd end up sitting on the floorboard, right? Like, just incapable. And then there were other things that gave me anxiety, like the pressure to perform. And it's like, well, my favorite example is, that anxiety that, oh my gosh, I would always wanted everything to be perfect when my husband would come home from a business trip, and it'd be like, okay, like in there scrambling over all the things, to get them done. And really in the grand scheme of things, like, he had no expectation of that. It was
Right.
it was just this internal pressure of, the laundry's all done, it's washed, it's dried, it's hung, it's folded, but it's still in the basket, it's not put away. And that would give me anxiety. And so there was a lot, that was just an internal, all about me thing, those control needs that, you have to work on. And it's like, where's that fear coming from? And it was so old. It was like super old stuff, like childhood stuff of being, the perfect little thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow, I'm attaching this one piece of my life to so many things that don't deserve for it to be attached there.
Right.
And it's causing me discomfort. Nobody else is uncomfortable about it. They don't even know that I'm riling inside. And, and so, yeah, we have to look at things, like learning how to go, wait, just stop.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I worried about uncertainty? A lot of things can happen, right? Like the what if this, or what if that, or what if it doesn't? What if this can be a bad question.
Oh, yeah. And insane. And the shouldas and the couldas and the wouldas. And I think for me also, I'm also thinking about how other people are receiving me. I'm thinking about their thoughts about me. I'm thinking about all of the ways that this could play out and how people will respond to it. So I'm no longer just even thinking about my soul, my personal life. I'm thinking about how others are seeing me. And so that's 1,000,001 people in my circle that are now playing in to my like mental loop, because I'm trying to figure out like, okay, if I do XYZ, how is that going to get their approval for this? Or if I do ABC, is this a better path to take? And it's an overwhelming feeling. But I think when you get down to it, for me, I think it's a thing of thinking that I have more choices and more options than necessary, thinking that I have to exhaust all possibilities in order to get like the perfect, like plan and operate perfectly. And it's not feasible, instead of just sticking to a choice or an opportunity and dedicating to it. And if it doesn't work out, accepting that I can grow from it and move on to the next one, as opposed to like, it has to be clear cut. This is the way it needs to be.
Yes. I need everybody to say yes so that I then have to choose between them.
And there's no other way around it. I'm not going above, below, like this is the path that I set out for myself, and I have to go down this path, and it has to work exactly how I intend it to. And this is how everybody's going to respond to this path. And again, it's just like thinking that I have control over things that I don't, and accepting that there's a lot of things, oh bless you, a lot of things outside of my control, my locus of control, and being okay with that, and being able to recover, stand up, move on, try again, something else, yeah, I think for me, like, I just like being so perfectionist and analytical. Like I think of all possible opportunities or options ahead of time before I make any possible decision, because I want to make sure that I make the absolute right one. And that makes no sense, because even if you make the quote unquote right decision, it doesn't mean that it's going to take you from step A to step B. There's so many factors that can come into play between step A and step B that you will not see, that you can't see.
Oh,
so you can plan it out as perfectly.
I love that you brought up the locus of control, right? Because when we start with a pressure to present how others need to receive you, right? Like, I'm worried about what their perception is. So I'm running through tapes of how others are seeing me, how others are receiving me. That we're starting from the outside instead of from the inside, right? Mm-hmm. Which is the most important, which is how do I want to see me? How do I want to experience myself? And how do I want to experience my environment and living my life, right? Like, how do I want this to be? How is it ideal for me? Because then once I know what that is, right? Like, I know how I want this to look, feel, and be. And it's my life. I get to choose, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I know how I want that to look, feel, and be. So that's how you're going to lead with, which ultimately lends itself to how others are going to receive you, right? But it's not unhealthy to ask, how do I want to be received by others? Because that's really telling you how you want to be seen, how you want to see yourself, right? But you have to start here, because if it's, I want to be received by others, and it's an unrealistic thing, that's just totally the opposite of who you are, right? That'd be like me showing up right now in a 3-piece suit, full makeup, hair done in a bun. I don't know, I don't know, CEO style. Like, I literally have slippers on right now, and my jeans have holes in them. But it would be like me showing up playing dress up. Like, this is how I think. This is how I think as a master addiction specialist, as a professional coach, a CEO of a company. This is how I need to show up, because that's how people need to receive me. Right. No, I need to show up for me the way that feels right for me. And if people are going to judge based on, the outside in, right, the outside first, then they're probably not the right people for me anyway, right? Because they'd be in a rude awakening the first time we had a one-on-one, because I'd be showing up like me.
There you go.
So it's what feels right for me. How do I want to see me? And I want to see myself comfortable, confident, focused, not sitting there uncomfortable, feeling like I'm, living in some facade, right? Not that I don't know how to wear a nice business suit, because I do, but you get what I'm saying. It's kind of a metaphor. Like, I'm going to show up 100% the right way for me today. And it's how I want to see me. It's how I want to see me experiencing my environment, how I want to see me experiencing my situations, my everything. Right. And as long as I show up in a way that matches my spiritual category, right, which is heavily weighted in my morals, my ethics, and my personal integrity, right? As long as I'm showing up and I'm doing that way, and when I lay my head down on the pillow at night, I can say to myself, I didn't cause anybody any undue or unnecessary harm, or hurt or pain, or whatever. Basically meaning I was not mean, I wasn't mean. I didn't do anything vindictive or vicious. I'm good, right? So then I get to present, like, I know in my gut that this is how I truly think, feel, and believe about this. And I'm being open, honest, genuine, and transparent, and presenting it in a fashion that I feel is appropriate, respectable, right? If they don't receive it that way, that's not on me. That's their ears. That's their filter. I can't change other people's perspectives or perceptions of me. I can only ensure that I show up in the way that I want to see myself and hope that they have a lens that matches.
Right. Yeah, agreed. And I think it's a fine line of seeking approval, right? Because, like even with the laundry example, and being a perfectionist, it's like, why do we have to be perfectionists? Whose approval are we seeking? Why do we have that standard? Why do we have those expectations? It's that fine line of it seeking approval, but also figuring out how you want to be perceived and received. But the key word being you, like, how do you want to be received by others? Like, how do you think others want to be received by you is not the way that you should go about that, right? So that's, for me, is differentiating that. Like, how do I personally want others to receive me, which takes some internal dialogue. It takes some getting to know myself. It takes some journaling. It takes some time alone.
I was going to say writing.
Yeah. To figure out how I personally want others to receive me. And then it starts getting you down that journey of living for yourself and not living for others. And living for others is my greatest like trigger for anxiety, like that. And it really peaked for me like in 2018, because I had lived so many years living in this facade of who I thought Jordan was, right? That I finally got to a breaking point where I was at crossroads, and I was dealing with an identity crisis, and I was doing 1,000,001 things that did not support me and were not healthy for me. And it was something that it took for me to get to rock bottom, to realize, like, I don't know who I am right now, because I've spent so much time creating this person who I thought that everybody wanted, around them, who I thought that everybody would like and enjoy, instead of being authentic and genuine to myself. And I lost myself, literally. Like, I had no idea who I was, what I liked, what my intentions were, what my values were. Like, I was looking in the mirror and I'm like, I don't even recognize you. And that was a scary, scary moment for me. And really sad, like, put me in a really depressing state. And it made me realize, like, all the actions and behaviors that I had taken that I was doing for other people, and ended up leading me down like some really dark places. And it's like, I wasn't even doing that for me. Like, I was doing that for other people's approval. So that was really rough, but I'm grateful for it, because then I started taking the time and I started doing the work to figure out, okay, who is Jordan? What is she like? What do you not like? Like, shut off social media and go to a restaurant that you think you're going to enjoy without taking any pictures of it and posting it. Am I going to this restaurant because I want people to see that I'm going to this restaurant, or I'm going to this restaurant because I actually like the food and the vibe? And am I going on this trip because I actually want to go on this trip, or am I just going for the admiration and the likes? So yeah, that's, I think, has always been my biggest trigger. And it took for me to, I guess, kind of hit rock bottom, I guess, get to the point where I was like so lost, to try and find my way again. And now I'm like, okay, this is how I want to be received from people, how I want to be received from people, and not how I think that others are expecting to receive me, right? Or seeking the approval from other people. And it releases so much anxiety and strife and turmoil and internal metacognition. But it does, yeah, it did take some time. It takes a lot of work, and there's still triggers to this day. With my job, with my career, with my aspirations, with the way that I'm going about adulting, it takes an everyday like battle struggle to make decisions, and realizing that I'm making them for me, as opposed to the perfectionist inside of me, as opposed to the the approval seeking part of me that I know is dead and gone now, so I'm not going to let her come back. But it's an everyday thing. Like it's like a conscious battle that you have to go through, but it's worth it, right? Because I'm no longer dealing with so much anxiety that even the slightest brush of wind triggers me into like a state of absolute distress and turmoil.
I just love the fact that you're like open enough to just like even, like share and talk about it, but I think, it's really important, a lot that you said, for people to hear, and you do so with the thought process of, I don't know, we call it add, edit, delete, but make it your own. But to hear the words that Jordan is saying here, because she's saying, I need to see if something as simple as going to a restaurant was for me because I wanted to go, or was it because I needed to be seen going there. And I think that in and of itself is, for you, yes, a reality, but also a good visualization. Right? Like I'm not saying that everybody is out there going and doing things so that, they can be seen doing them. But sometimes we have to ask ourselves, is this action that I'm about to do, is it truly for me? Is it something that is going to fill my soul, help fill my purpose in life, or help me even discover what I feel my purpose in life is, or what direction I want to take? Or is it solely because I'm desperately seeking attention, acknowledgement, validation, or valuation? And because if we, and this also comes, from part of my own, internal beliefs, which is my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, my opinions, my beliefs, needs, wants, dreams, desires are not seen as valid or holding any value. And therefore leads us to feel very dismissed in our life, right? Like, think of the thumbs up. If we're not getting thumbs up or hearts or comments or shares or whatever, and of course I'm using social media as a metaphor, but if we're not getting that and we're desperately seeking it, so we're always putting out new content, again, I'm using social media as a metaphor, but if we're putting out all this new content, just waiting, trying to figure out which version, which caption, which visual is going to draw us the most attention, we're just telling ourselves that we're screaming for love and attention from ourselves first. Like, if we truly love the way we feel when we walk out of our room in the morning, when we get dressed, if we love how we feel, everybody else is going to love it too, or they won't, but who cares, right? Because we love it so much. And again, if you want to go to McDonald's, right? And again, it's metaphor, but and you don't take pictures of it and you don't share it, or if you do and you want to share it and somebody's like giving you a thumbs down because, ooh, bad choice, it doesn't matter, because we're not really asking for their evaluation, because we're doing something, we're staying true and genuine to ourselves, right? And Jordan and I know how to talk to each other. We know the language that we speak. And so for any of you that are struggling to stay along with me and my metaphoric way of speaking, I try to use real life experiences and teach people how to attach that to other situations or scenarios so that they can see in a broader perspective how much we really can actually deepen our consciousness and our awareness with the true relationship that we have with ourselves, so that we can see where we really want to change, shift, grow more, in a direction that's going to actually bring fulfillment.
Right.
So, but very, very, very pertinent, right? Because when we're more accepting of ourselves, what happens to the fear and the anxiety and the uncertainty?
Yeah, it dissolves. It starts to disappear. And again, I think a lot of anxiety stems from uncertainty, not knowing how others are perceiving you, but wanting them to perceive you in this certain way, and just wanting to have control over all these things that you can't have control over. But when you're confident and stable in who you are, you no longer really care about those things, because as long as I'm putting myself out there the way that I want to, the way that I love, the way that I'm confident and secure in doing so, I don't care if people don't receive me the way that I intend them to. That's no longer a me issue, because this is who I am, and I'm not afraid to showcase it, and I'm not afraid to stand and be grounded in that. And these are the behaviors that I have, and this is my personality, and this is a career choice, whatever. And if people like that, great, and are gravitated by that, great. If people don't, I'm not as phased anymore, and it doesn't send me down this like downward spiral, because I'm now authentically being genuinely me, as opposed to like this mask or this like facade that I'm putting on to try and please other people. And then I'm dealing with all this turmoil because I don't even know who I am, what I like, what I don't like, who my real friends are, who my real, family is, my circles. Like it gets into a deep thing. And I think even when dealing with that and not really being me, it came with a lot of anger and like shame, guilt, like bitterness, like hatred, because I was so like insecure and volatile that it was like just like a dark place to be in, right? And then negative emotions seep out of that, like naturally, because you're not living the life that you want to live at that point. And so, yeah, of course you're gonna be bitter. Of course you're gonna be resentful. Of course, you're gonna compare yourself to everybody because you're in such a state of turmoil. You're not grounded in anything. So things easily trigger you. The way somebody talks, their tone,
That one for
a
sure.
TV show. Yeah. But yeah, obviously I'm not, I still got work to do, still a lot to be done, but I'm secure enough where I can take a step back and figure out, like, why is this person talking to me the way I'm talking, or the way that they're talking to me? Is it more of a reflection of them and what they're going through than it is with me,
Oh my gosh, yes. I love that.
But
sorry.
Yeah. Okay. But it's like I can see clearly now, because it's not this fog, and I'm not going crazy overthinking about every single little detail or every single little action that I take in my life, that I can actually sit back and think, and I have a clear conscience, and I can figure out, like, okay, maybe that's a representation of them and what they're going through, and they're taking it out on me as opposed to who I am, because I know at this point who I am, and I know that I'm secure in who I am, and I know that I'm trying to be genuine and kind, and that person is still acting that sort of way towards me. So I'm not going to let that trigger me, because that's more of a representation probably of what they're going through, right? And whatever anxiety and stress that they are dealing with. And so it gets you to a point where, like, now you can have more empathy for people, sympathy, patience, right? And that's an amazing place to be, as opposed to being so reactive and emotionally triggered all the time and just like waiting to attack on somebody. And which all are symptoms of dealing with crazy anxiety and depression. Like any type of like mental illness, like it all relates, it all coincides. So once you get to a place where you're more mentally stable, like you can actually think more clearly, and emotionally you're not as reactive.
I think it also, offers a lot more space, right? And what you're referring to, it offers more space to just allow somebody else to be, right? So if we're not standing in judgment of trying to have a premonition or a perspective of they must be thinking or feeling that, or, like just assuming that we know what somebody thinks or feels, or that, if we just say, oh, they're talking to me in such a negative tone of voice, like they must be mad at me. I love that you said, I don't know what's going on in their life, right? So we move from, literally everything you're saying was moving from the stance of a judger into the stance of a learner, where it's either I can just say, because that I don't know what's going on in that person's life, but I'm clearly, whatever I'm picking up on has more to do with them than it does me, right? And then, but then we also, once we move into that stance of a learner, we can also always make that discernment of whether or not we want to move into, inquiry for deeper understanding. Like, wow, I'm feeling like, you're it feels like you're bothered or you're off or whatever. And I can't imagine that it's what I said right now. Is everything okay? Or, whatever version of that. But, it opens our eyes to see that, society as a whole walks around in the stance of a judger most of the time. I mean, we're judging people frequently. Like, why are they driving that way? Why are they wearing those clothes? Like, what were they thinking? They don't know what they're talking about, right? Like, because we all have different opinions, different views. I mean, and not even to bring in politics or religion, but to use them as a thing, like, clearly not everybody thinks, feels, and believes the same way, and has different, perspectives or different goals or different motives or different aspirations. And it's okay. If I want to say this is my life too, it gets to look, feel, be however I want it to. I have to offer that to everybody else. Like, that's good, dude, that's your life. Go ahead. If you want to drive that way, I get to make a choice now. If somebody's tailgating me to get into the stance of a judger and brake check them so that they can see how close to my bumper they get, or I can just move over and say, hey man, I don't know what's going on in your life, but clearly you're in a much more hurry than I am. Enjoy. I hope you get wherever you're going safely. Like, I don't need to judge that. I don't need to try to figure it out. I don't need to, insert my will. I simply just need to maybe get out of that person's way, right? Or go around them if I'm in more of a hurry than they appear to be. But it doesn't have to be friction. It doesn't have to be a judgment. And I just think, we'd all get along a whole lot more if we took, the stance of a learner, in so many different aspects.
Agreed.
Without going into a much bigger topic, but
like world peace.
World peace. Yes, we want world peace.
Yeah. No, right? Agreed. And I think that again, the best place to be in to be a learner is one where you are more secure and stable and grounded in who you are. Because you're right. Society, just natural tendencies, we judge, right? So of course people are going to have anxiety. Like, of course, like, family judges, your friends judge, your kids judge. Like, it's just like, you have to set out to be the best version of yourself at all times. And social media doesn't make it any better. And when you feel like you have all eyes on you, and you're already in an insecure place, and you're already like somewhere where you're not really living like authentically for you, like, of course, that's going to be 1,000,000% you're going to have anxiety, and you're going to feel insecure. You're going to be emotionally triggered really easily, because there's nothing anchoring you. You're just floating around, like, emotionally. There's nothing grounding you. Wherever the wind blows you. Like, maybe you're going to go to this bar because you want to improve this people, or maybe you're going to get into this career occupation because that's how your family wants you to be. It's like, 1,000,000% you're going to have anxiety. So it takes, I would say, for the first step for anybody, like, definitely journaling, definitely writing it down so you can see it, saying it out loud, recording yourself so you can hear it. It's not all just in your head, right? Collaborating, speaking to somebody so that they can hear it and they can give you a fresh perspective, but it's internal work first.
Oh my gosh. I was just about to ask you if you could leave everybody with like 3 tips that work for you. And you did it without me asking.
There we go.
And, you know, it's just always amazing how rapidly time flies whenever we're having a conversation. You're
I know.
such a joy and such a pleasure. So I am going to tell everybody, you know, Jordan will be back again next month. We haven't set an exact date, but I would venture to say, I don't know, 2-3 weeks. So she will be back. We are going to continue these conversations, but I want you to know that I'm going to be putting in the comments below all of Jordan's contact information, how you can reach her, also how you can subscribe, so that she can share amazing, useful things with you that she's been utilizing and that she's been working on, or just so that you can, you know, connect on a deeper level. And then, of course, you know, the normal traditional things that we drop into the comment section, the website, things like that and whatnot. But that's all going to be down below in the comment section. At some point in time, I'm going to try to get that done here before the top of the hour and before I move into my next session. Anyway, Jordan, it is definitely a pleasure. Don't hang up. I do want to close up with you really quick before you do, but thank you so much. I think it is just so refreshing to hear somebody speak so openly and freely about anxiety, fear, and uncertainty, right? Like, those are big deals. Those are big topics, and everybody experiences them on some level or another. And so, you know, I think it's just beautiful that you're willing to show up and share about that. Thank you. Anyway, okay, everybody, we will see you next week. Don't hesitate, reach out. Any one of us or either one of us will pick up our phone or text message. So we will chat with you soon.